So, hi everyone, if you're out there, we're going to get started. This is a Bookswell podcast slash video interview and reading with Roxana Preciado, who is a poet, advocate, activist, caregiver, therapist, and more, because, we're all these things and we're also more than we can ever say.
True.
Okay. So for those of you who know Bookswell, you may have heard an interview that Roxana did with us last year. That's episode 7, I believe, of season 1. And it happens to be our most listened to episode. So when Roxana reached out to me again this year and said, hey, I have a new book out, I was like, all right, cool. Like, we're going to talk again. You may have also seen her read during our Intentional Intersectionality, Amplifying Voices of Writers of Color last year at the Armory. And so both of those are on the Bookswell website. You can check them out and hear her read those works. But today we're going to talk about her new book, Trauma for Sale, which is a gorgeous volume of both poetry and artwork and photography. And we're going to hear Roxana read some of those too. So I'm so glad that you're here, Roxana. Thank you.
Thank you for making the time to meet with me, even during all this virtually.
Yes. So let's start. I remember when I think it was last year, 2019, at the Lit Festival, you provided me some of your books, Hood Educated, Not a Writer, and Not a Fairy Tale, that we sold to some grateful poetry fans down in the Arts District back when we could all get together in person and be the social animals that we are. And you told me that you were working on a new book. So I want to kind of pick up there and hear about what was the process like for you over the last year to put Trauma for Sale together.
Well, the original book that I was writing changed a lot because of what happened in our lives. Everything that's happening in the world, not just, especially here at home, not just the thing with the pandemic, but social justice issues. So the content of my book changed. It's like a completely different book. Originally, the thought behind that was to be, I did keep some of it, the base for it, which was I wanted to be very honest. I wanted to be brave, and I wanted to talk about things that I wasn't ready to talk about yet. But at that point, after working with my therapist for so long, I was finally ready. And that's also, it helps me because I need to make sure that, to be honest, after the pandemic hit, I really started to question everything. And that's why I changed my book a lot. It was, what am I leaving behind? What have I said? What have I done for my community? Was it enough? Me as a clinician, what have I done? Was I honest about who I was? And the answer is yes, but not with everything, because there's some things that I wanted to keep to myself because it was so painful. And I was currently working on it in therapy. Then around last summer, that's when this whole thing started. And then the pandemic hit and I said, I might not have time. And that's the truth. I thought I might not have time. And so I spent the rest of the time composing this book. I said, I'm going to put my personal photographs in there. I'm going to put my artwork, which is behind me, in there. I'm going to talk about things that I was afraid to speak about. But I want to be honest, because if I leave, I don't want people to think that it's that simple, that you can just go to therapy and go to school and that all of a sudden everything's fine and that there's some sort of happily ever after there. That's not reality. The reality for me, I'm only speaking for me, who comes from so much trauma, so much adversity, so many things, that I continuously work on myself, and I will try my best to be the best version of myself. But that's an ongoing process. There is no, now I'm fine and everything's great. That doesn't exist. To say that is unfair to anybody who hears about me or sees me and thinks, oh, there's a solution for this. And then when they get there and they work on themselves and they look at me and think, why am I not as good as her? I must be broken. I must be flawed in some way. And that is not true. There is nothing wrong with them. In fact, they should be proud of themselves for being brave, facing their demons, and going to therapy and working on themselves. Mm-hmm. That is the goal. Improvement, never perfection.
Yeah, there's so much. I'm just going to show the book cover again. There's so much in here with regard to the poetry that is painful reflections on your past. And one of the things that I've told people in the past about your work is that it feels almost like conversations that you're having with people in your life who have harmed you, and trying to find a way to come to terms with it, to come to some resolution to it. And I wonder if there's something about the healing process being public in a way that you're sharing through your poetry, and what how that changes how you heal.
I always keep in mind that I am very fortunate. I've worked really hard to be where I am today. Most difficult thing I've ever had to do is work on my emotions and my mind and all the aftermath of what happened in my life and my past. And I remember thinking, while I was in the process of getting here, how lonely it felt, and how I felt somehow that I was broken. And there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. I had a conversation with this incredible professor, man, activist, this tremendous person, Carlos. And I wrote a piece about it, our conversation regarding how there's nothing wrong with my body. Me having anxiety, me suffering from depression, me having PTSD, these things are natural reactions to my constant environment. They're just reactions. And so how is my body broken? It's working just fine. It's protecting me. It's defending me. It's activating all these things for the purpose of trying to protect me against my reality. So I want to make sure that others know that they're not alone. And it sounds real cheesy, to be honest. I mean, that you're not alone. But no, really, I wanted to hear that. I wanted to know that I was going to be okay, that there was nothing wrong with me, and that I was on the right path. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I was so honest. And then I thought, and if I'm gone after this, then here it is. Here is my complete truth. Many will judge me, but that's what a real human being looks like. And that's what I look like. Not some, all inspirational story, but a flawed human being who's trying her best.
Mm-hmm. And there's a whole section in here. There's many sections in this book, but many of the poems deal with recovery.
Yes, recovery.
And I know that was something sort of in the recent history that you've been dealing with. I was wondering if you want to talk about that and how you put that into words.
Well, last year, actually, when we had our interview, I had to ask permission because I was in the middle of recovery. I committed myself. I needed help, and there was nothing wrong with seeking help, but I needed something else more than a therapist, more than my own work on myself. I needed help. And, I was dealing with some serious things in therapy, and I needed a team behind me. And that's what I did. I went to go seek help. So it was surreal to me that I was on, I think, day 3 in my recovery process. And I had to ask permission from the facility to go and see you. I told them why. And I remember talking to you in the interview and being completely shaky and being just completely emotional, but telling you, I'm working on my book and I'm working on being more honest. And I will tell you later what this is about. I was in 3 days. I couldn't exactly say. By the way, I fell really hard and I feel like I'm crawling on the floor. I feel defeated. I feel like embarrassed. I feel like all this shame that came over me because I felt like I failed, not just myself, but the people I was helping. I stopped seeing clients. I completely just disconnected and focused on me because that's what I needed to do at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that rings very familiar to me right now, in terms of how people are dealing with the isolation that is being imposed on us. And one path that you can choose is to embrace that isolation and crawl away and hide. And you might call it depression, or you might call it self-protective care. But feel like a lot of people are definitely going through that right now. I want to ask also about the artwork, because I didn't know you were an artist. I had been familiar with your writing, and it was such a treat to open this book and to see kind of this whole new dimension of expression. And these are, I mean, I'm so glad you have some of them on behind you, because for those of you who haven't seen this book, these various media artworks are interspersed with the poetry, and it really provides kind of a lens, I guess, into your life, along with the photographs too.
Exactly. That was the goal. So thank you for saying that, because that was the goal. I was trying to let people in. It was like I opened the door to my home, to people. I wanted to be completely honest, and I've been painting since I was an adolescent, and I, just like my poetry and my writing, I always thought I was no good at anything. So I thought I'm not a good enough, painter, writer, whatever. So with this, again, it's this looming thought, like it's this thought in the back of my mind of what if this is it? And I know it sounds really negative, and of course I'm going to be okay because I'm staying positive, because I have to. There's no right way to deal with this. This is a first time occurrence in our lifetime. So obviously all our reactions are going to be more like a roller coaster. Sometimes I'm convinced, super hopeful. Some days I'm just sad.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Yeah. Heartbroken.
Yes, definitely. So it's just a roller coaster, and it is what it is. That's what everybody is going through all over the world, I'm sure. But I wanted people to see a glimpse of me. And my paintings, I use very bright, vibrant colors because I try to offset the sad content of my paintings. So if you've noticed, it's really sad themes, but they're done, like I try to paint them in these vibrant, beautiful colors, so it can kind of offset that.
It's like a beauty in sorrow.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the one right over your shoulder of the woman with inside of her head, is the world. And I feel like we're often carrying the cares and problems of the world inside of our heads, and it takes a toll. Yeah,
that was actually done in the middle of me working through, again, always working on myself, me working on myself and feeling so lost, feeling, is there a place in the professional world for me? Can I pursue a higher degree? Am I good enough to, because I think that serving clients, being allowed to help someone else with their mental health, being allowed to get to know them on such a personal level, helping them be better parents, better people, better workers, better friends, better within, and help them heal. It's an honor. It is a privilege. And I take it very seriously, which is why I questioned myself for years before I entered my master's program. Am I healthy enough? Am I good enough to serve my community in this way? Because I think it's such a privilege. I mean, who thinks that they're good enough to do that? So I constantly work on myself to ensure that I am doing my best. This is a tough time to bring a book into the world. But I know from our previous conversations that part of the reason that you're writing is to help others know that they're not alone, know that that there are pathways through darkness. Yes.
And toward the light. Is. And so I'd love to hear kind of how, maybe since the last time we've talked, or even more recently, like the reaction that you're getting, and how you're engaging with your community and your readers around your poetry. There's been, throughout this whole entire process of me working on myself and writing different books, there's been a mixture of reaction. But the most recent, we've spoken a little bit about past reactions, but what I find is that I found my community. You mentioned that last time, and I thought it was a beautiful idea, and it got me thinking, but it is true. I found like-minded people who are working on themselves, who are very honest with themselves, and they're trying to be the best people they can be. They're trying to be just a good human. There is no such thing as bad and good. It's just we try to be good every day, and that is the definition of a good person. Are you trying to make better decisions? Are you changing your behavior to reflect who you want to be?
That's as simple as it is. It's just my opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm right. And and so that's what I try to do. I try to be the best person I can be. And I forgot your original question.
And I think that that's so challenging right now because we've all become sort of experts on ethics in terms of how we care for ourselves and how we care for our community. And there are consequential choices to make about how we go about our daily lives, and whether that could potentially endanger someone else.
Exactly.
And, and there's frankly a toll that it takes to always be considering the impacts of your actions. And I think some people break and they say, you know what, I'm only thinking about myself and I need to do what I need to do for me. And that's kind of the situation that we're in.
It's what you just said is very accurate. It's that's how I view myself in daily, right? It's about part of being that good person is being kind and good to yourself primarily, right? Because if you don't set up boundaries, if you don't take care of yourself, then you are no good to anybody else. You're giving them your scraps. So it's best to take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself for not being perfect. And if you ever doubt that you're a good person, remember the last time that you stopped and thought, am I hurting that person's feelings? Am I being neglectful? Am I being mean? Have I been unkind? That is what makes you a good person.
So I want to ask, I do want to get to your poems and to hear you read.
Of course.
But I also wanted to ask about the personal cost for you to be writing about your trauma. And, there's this idea out there that, maybe some people agree with, maybe some people don't, that writing about trauma helps you heal. And I've heard kind of various reactions to that. It can also be, it can be healing, it can be retriggering, it can be, all of those things. I was wondering, when you're choosing what you're writing about, like, how do you decide what to leave in and what to not pursue?
I have a warning on literally the beginning of my book that says, "This is my trigger warning," in all caps. That was the first thing that I did. Because if I read that, I would read some of the titles and think, maybe I shouldn't read that section. Section is on, the therapy, pills, and diagnoses. Second section, cheers, 80 proof truth about my recovery. The first part about my mental health struggles. 4-year-old immigrant, where I discuss my journey as an immigrant here in this country and the obstacles such a silly word, the obstacles. It was at times mentally breaking, and it was fucking hell, to be honest. Then there's she, he, they, which is my identity as within my LGBTQ plus community and my evolution within there. Paramours and other gossip, which is a lot of people think that they understand the complexity of, my personal relationship with my wife and myself and my gender identity, my sexuality, all of that. Nobody can know unless you ask. You can assume and make things. That's why I said an author gossip. The artist, because, whatever. And then the artist, just, me as an artist, and what does that do to me when I'm writing and creating? And I just get in this bubble where I will either listen to music or turn everything off and just disconnect from the world. And it looks like a Dexter scene here in my house. I just put plastic down the thing, paint everywhere, and I just, for hours, work at it. That's what it looks like. And then healing is a privilege, because it is. Healing is a privilege that some people cannot financially afford, emotionally afford, because it breaks them so much during the process that they give up, as you said. And it is a privilege because most people are still suffering and going through their trauma.
Yeah. And the world doesn't create space for them to heal because it inflicts again and again and again. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
Well, maybe this leads into maybe my last question for you around survivorship and the difference between being a victim and being a survivor.
Well, I first heard the word survivor. Like I've heard that word thrown around, but I always viewed myself, well, I was a victim of this and victim of that. And I worked so hard in therapy to even see me and myself as a victim because I kept thinking that wasn't a big deal. I'm one of many. So I didn't give myself the space to let myself grieve and let myself deal with my stuff. I thought someone always has it worse than I do. I shouldn't complain. Right. But this presenter in one of my classes said, she was so open. I won't say her name, but she was so open, and it was a gift to hear her story of survival. And she said, I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And that stuck with me. And then I started to think and rethink about the way that I view myself. And though in some spaces in mental health, we still use the word victim. For myself, I do not see myself as a victim. I was a victim. I am now a survivor because I did.
Is your book? So I noticed in a lot of the poems that you have the text itself, and then there's often like a postscript in italics that seems almost like a meta commentary. Maybe the poet at a remove from the poem reflecting on what it means. How did you what are those all about?
Those are all either dedications or messages to whoever's reading these books. Sometimes I tell them, if I can do this, you can achieve more. You can do anything. Write your story, tell your story, be strong. You're not alone. Things like that. Or I say it's dedicated to my community, or I'm speaking to my mother, my biological mother, or I'm speaking to the perpetrators who inflicted a lot of pain. And that's what those are about. The idea came from a friend of mine who's also an artist. And he said to me, why don't you explain the thing? Because I would read him my pieces and say, is this good? Does it need work? Like asking him feedback. And he said, what you just described to me, I didn't understand. Why don't you write that like a little commentary so people understand what you're saying? Because the message will get lost. And that's how it started.
Love that. I'm so glad that you brought this gift to readers during a time when we're all feeling, pretty crappy.
Yeah, true.
Would you read some from this for us?
Yes. I'm going to read 5. I was originally going to read 6, but I felt like that one was a little, I changed it. The book is very personal. It has just a warning to people. It has, I discuss openly rape, child molestation, specifically incest. I discuss addiction. I discuss recovery. I discuss mental health issues, suicide ideation, and past suicide attempts. And, what does that look like? This first piece is me kind of opening the door to my home, opening the door to this book. It's called Sold 2019. Trauma for sale. Deal of the day. The special, not special in any way. Self-destructive in every way. So anxious and afraid. The healer, twice fallen, she prays for a better day. Selling her story, veins open. She bleeds truth on her reading days. Trauma for sale. Her pain, the deal of the day. This is Truth Lines 2019. Truth Lines. Here we go. Because I hate myself when I lie. Because I'd rather be me than pretend I don't cry. Because if I bottle it up inside, I will die. Because death's not a metaphor when more than once you've been brought back to life. Because I want to die sometimes. Truth Lines. Pen down. This is a piece that I wrote for my mother, my biological mother. I will never say her name for her own privacy, but There was this past year, on top of this, I was told that she was really sick and that she wasn't going to make it. That wasn't the case, but I forgive her. This is called forgive and forget. I can forgive you, Mother. Forgive you for everything. The beatings, the hateful words you echoed to me. In me, you saw the man you loved and left you because of me. I can forgive you, Mother. Forgive you for hating me, for resenting the gay girl inside of me, for despising the man I can sometimes be. I can forgive you, Mother. Forgive that at 16 you abandoned me. Forgive that your actions opened the door to rape for adolescent me. I can forgive you, Mother. Forgive that you could not hug me. I believe you. Someone else deeply hurt you. It wasn't about me. I can forgive you, Mother. I can forgive you for everything. Everything except for him. You're still married and live with him. The monster who at age 8 stripped away my innocence, who at 15 you saw naked in my bed, who you chose to defend. I can forgive you, Mother. I can forgive you and let God heal you. If only I could forgive that part, I could again speak to you. Mother, I miss you. This is, give me 1 second, please.
Take your time.
Cody?
Yeah.
Okay. My windows just all popped up at the same time. And now I can't even see you at this point.
Oh, yeah, no, we're still going.
Okay. It's okay. If I can't see you, it's okay. As long as you can see me. Yeah, perfectly.
You know what? Sakaya says that so there's people watching us on Facebook Live. Sakaya says, I'm here, Roxana. Caitlin says, love you, Roxana. I'm so proud of you and so honored to be here with you. Nathan Ray says, you are so strong, Roxana. So your community's here for you. Lots and lots of hearts.
Thank you. This is Children at Play. These next 2 pieces have to do with my Latino community, specifically the DACA students, the undocumented people who are part of my community, because that's where I came from. This is Children at Play. This it doesn't need to be explained. You'll understand it. Children at Play 2019. Society is plagued. Hate epidemic. The fallen politely said. Another child's dead. Caged and afraid while those in power continue playing children's games. Tantrum displays. I'm angry and afraid. I hold my child tight and pray for better days. Collateral damage. The fallen. Caution. Children are at play. This is Childhood Arrival, 2019. Hiding for so many years made a liar out of me. Lies out of necessity. Terrified that someone might notice me. 4-year-old immigrant. I did not choose this. They chose for me. Upon arrival, a new fear was born. Nightmares of being ripped away from yet another home. In time, I did not dream in Spanish anymore. My language, a tongue-twisted mix of hood Spanish and school English language. Messed up language. Little gay girl who feels like a boy, as if I needed another reason to question the very essence of my soul. As if I needed another identity crisis at 6 years old. After so much hurt and struggle, I am not hiding anymore. I am not a liar. Truth pours out of me verbally, lyrically, my poetry. Stories from the lips of an immigrant. I am one of millions. Truth from the shadows. I'm not a criminal. Childhood arrival. Our stories of survival. That was written with love for my community. And this is me at when I arrived to the country. This is the criminal that they paint. And that's it.
Thank you. Sky says, tell Roxana we love her. And you've got some family also sending you love. So thank you, people who are tuning in to hear these wonderful poems by Roxana. And I hope, does it feel, I mean, I know it's hard, but yeah. I hope that it helps to share.
Yeah, it does, because if I don't tell my story, it's going to be told for me. People love to, have conversations and build their own opinions. And isn't that beautiful that we can do that? But I want to be able to tell my own story. And that's why I do it. And it hurts. It feels like every single time, like I rip open old wounds and I bleed out in front of people, or it feels like it's a very painful process every single time. But I remember what I would have given to know that I was going to be better, that I was going to be all right, and that I wasn't the only one, that what I thought I wanted was possible. I hope that's the message that my community gets, that they're not alone, and we together will rise and we'll be okay, and that nobody's perfect.
Thank you. So for those of you watching and listening now or in the future, you can go to Roxana's website. It's roxanapreciadoauthor.com, and you can see her 4 books of poetry for sale, and this one, Trauma for Sale, is both poetry, photography, and artwork. And I saw, Roxana, on your website, there's also a black and white.
Yes.
Tell me more, what is that?
Well, I did that. It's the same exact book, but it's in black and white. And the reason I did that is because the people that I want to reach, which are people in my community. I mean, I used to survive off of $20 for 2 weeks. There was a lot of dollar menu, a lot of cup of noodles, a lot of those days. And sometimes even the whatever meal I chose for that day had to be split, because that's the reality. Anybody who's going through this knows exactly what I'm talking about. Even a cup of noodle is expensive at that point. I want to be able to provide my community. I donated a bunch of my books. I always do that. If somebody can't afford it, I send them the digital copy or I give them a physical copy. The black and white collection, because of my who makes my books, who distributes my books, the cost of printing the book in color went through the roof. Even sold to me as the author copies are $32. They're super expensive.
Yeah.
So the people that I would like to read my work, that I feel like hopefully can find something positive in it and help them, they can't afford that. So I did a black and white version. I made it super affordable. And even then, that way I can buy copies that author cost, the black and white version, and give them away still the same way that I give away my other books.
Yeah.
That's important to me, because this is in my career. My career is mental health. I'm a therapist. I'm a clinician. That's also a passion of mine. I'm many things, but I want to be able to help people, and that's the purpose of my books. And if they can't read them, if they can afford them, what's the point? That's why I did that.
Yeah. Well, I hope you'll come back again and share more of your work with us. I hope that your artwork gets to live out in the world where more people can see it too. So keep us apprised on how that goes.
Will do. Thank you so much for your support, for allowing me a space to tell my story and share my story. It is so important to me to be able to reach other people who may need to hear something I have to say or connect with my community. And that's what you're doing, Cody. You're doing my community and me a service. And I thank you.
Thank you. So we'll do this again.
Definitely. I'm going to close all videos since I'm not tech savvy. And then that way I'll know that it's done. Okay.
That sounds good. Thank you, Roxana. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Bye.
Wishing you well.
Thank you. You as well. Bye.